Yeah. Every conversation can and will elevate you. It's where real talk meets real growth. Welcome back to Level Up. Some people teach sales, others change how you see hospitality. Today's guest did that for me years ago in Doha, and since then, he's built a career across continents, helping hotels sharpen performance through trainings, quality audits, and operational discipline. We are talking peak performance, what it really means, and how to measure it and how to build it. Lucas Peng, founder and CEO at Peak Hospitality Solutions. You are a long-time hospitality and travel tech operator, hotel sales, marketing, distribution. I think all of it, you went through it.
Yes.
Plus the decades and in the industry. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for inviting me to the show.
Of course, I'm really excited to have you, especially because I remember back when I really started my hospitality journey, one of the very first training, it was by you. And I think, yeah, it was really special. And believe it or not, until today, this training touched me and I learned so much from it. And I think I'm really honored and blessed that we stayed connected all these years. So thank you for that as well.
Thank you. So you're one of the success stories, basically.
I think so. I think so. I still do remember some parts. I think it was sales related, and
Yes.
some of the techniques was all a lot about the body language and how to understand the client needs. And I still remember a lot of stuff until today, which is absolutely success for you. So well done.
Thank you. Thank you.
I also saw that you have worked with center reservations and distribution organizations like UTEL and Pegasus
Yes.
Solutions. You held a VP Asia Pacific role at Pegasus, and you also built IFH Asia Pacific via joint venture with the German trading and quality audit company IFH GmbH, launching in Singapore and Hong Kong before later creating your own business, Peak Hospitality Solutions, which definitely I want to jump and talk a little bit about it. But for the audience, so people doesn't really know you, maybe a quick brief about what you do.
Thank you. Yeah, I've been in the industry, I would say, close to 40 years now, I think. I think I look that age.
No, you look good.
But yeah. And I started in the hospitality industry, basically working in hotel sales way back in the 80s, I would say. And it was fun. And it was learning the basics. I think was great. And after a while, I kind of like moved on into a reservations and distribution company. And sadly, UTEL is no longer around. I think it kind of like died with the changes in distribution over the years. And it was a CRS company and a distribution company, which was a fun time. And I was working with them for more than 11 years until I became VP for Asia Pacific. And then the 9/11 event happened and everything kind of like stopped. And eventually I kind of decided to leave and then started working with in partnership with a friend and created a joint venture in Asia Pacific at that time. Yeah. And that was in
Interesting.
I think it was what, 2003 or 2002, around there. Yeah. Just after the 9/11 event. It was a risky time because I think everybody was looking for a safety net. But I was kind of like, let's make the move. let's see what happens. We just jumped.
Yeah,
Got started.
I think this industry went through a lot, like the 1911, COVID, like all this.
Yes, exactly. And I think immediately after we started the business, I think the next year SARS hit.
Yeah,
So I was right in
exactly.
the middle of SARS at the time as well. I think that's
Exactly.
just after that that's where we met, when we started doing trading for uh Movenpick and Kempinski, and was all
Correct.
across the region. Yeah.
Correct. Definitely. If I remember, it was like around 2007, 8. I
Yes,
think
I
that
think around
range.
that. Yeah, I was doing my rounds of the I think, was it Movenpick or
Yes,
Kempinski?
it was
I
more.
think it was Movenpick.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think it was Movenpick.
yeah, correct.
Because we
Correct.
did
Those
training for
times,
all the
Alhamdulillah.
Movenpick. Yeah, right. And that was
Yes,
still under
correct.
IFH at the time. Yeah, under IFH, which is a German partnership that I had with. And eventually in 2014, I decided to jump out and start my own completely. So I bought over their IFH shares in Asia Pacific, and I created Peak Hospitality Solutions at the time.
Well, what a journey. What a journey. Really interesting
Yeah.
and a lot to learn from. And that's why I'm honored to have you in the show. I want to unpack a lot of stuff with you. But let's start with something, of course, that close to my heart. That's how we met, trainings. Take us
Mm-hmm.
back. Where you teaching then? And what do you think young hoteliers, especially nowadays in sales, maybe if we want to be specific, most needed to learn at this time?
Okay, right. I think fundamentally the basics are still there in sales training, or sales selling skills. I would say the fundamentals are there. It's just the way to go about it has changed a lot. Of course,
Yeah.
in those days when internet was just starting out, it wasn't the big. It wasn't big then. But then now it's like everything is on mobile. Everything is. I mean, for example, the China market. Everything is on WeChat and nothing else. No emails. So they have to go through that whole process. That changed completely. But however, I still believe that the basics, the fundamentals of sales is still there. And the basic things are like, for example, the sales process. There must be a sales process because to have the consistency and quality and performance, you must have that process ongoing. And everybody has to know the process. But sadly, I still find that a lot of hotels take on new salespeople into their hotel without that basic training of the fundamental stuff. And then they struggle. They just kind of put them into the role and learn the ropes from their superiors or from their colleagues. And in addition to the off the cuff learning, they also pick up the bad habits as well, I would say. So they don't have that basics. And it is the basics that kind of give that foundation, that strong foundation to build upon. So
I agree. Being in sales all over my career, I fully agree with you that the basics always should be there, even though with the technology and the rise of everything we're experiencing, of course, absolutely you have to make a use of it, especially automation and, less the admin work, but the basics have to stay there, especially because of the relationship. At least that's what I learned on.
mm,
Relationships always needs that human connection, that sales process, that's
yes.
kind of basis that you have to learn. So I really agree with you on that. Good to hear. Maybe when you look back at that era, what did hotels misunderstood about selling in general?
You're talking about those days in the past, basically. I would think their focus maybe was just on the numbers, on making the calls, making the sales calls, just going on the sales calls. I still remember those days, and it's like the standard was 5 sales calls a day. Every day you got to go out and just hit the road and make 5 sales calls a day. But whether it was a good sales call or not, it doesn't really matter as long as come back with reports, and then they look at the revenue generated. However, again, the growth may not be there, but the numbers are there, but the growth may not be there. The basics. So it's but and I think that was one key thing that I always talk about. Basically, it is not about the 5 sales calls. It is the quality of the sales calls. What you do when you go on the sales calls, when you meet with the customer, what you talk about, and how you go about finding out or asking questions. Core skills about salespeople is questioning, how to ask the right questions, how to explore. How to explore and find out more about the customer instead of just telling. And again, one of the mistakes is that they always go with the toolkit, or I mean, nowadays it's iPad or whatever. In those
Yes.
days it was brochure. I can't believe they still use brochure in those days to do the sales training. And they start presenting. They just go in and make the introduction and start talking about the hotels, without finding out what the customers really want, what customers' needs are. And so they just go and sell, and it starts from what we have, instead of asking the customer what they need. Yeah. So
Yeah, you're
that's one of the
absolutely right. I think I've been there. I've been in that era where it was only about just making sales calls, making numbers. It doesn't matter the
yeah.
value, it doesn't matter the result. It's just about the numbers of sales call you
Yeah.
do a weekly. And I think also, I want to hear from you as well about that. I think the culture and the market plays a role here. Like being in different markets, I also experienced that. Like back in the Middle East is way different from being in Europe in terms
Mm,
of number of sales calls that you need to do. And
yes.
how do you think about this as well on your side?
Yeah, I do agree. I do agree that different countries, different regions have got different cultures, and that also makes it challenging in a way for the leaders to manage accordingly without understanding the fundamental culture. I mean, again, like for example, I use China as an example now because I do a lot of work in China. It's not about the sales calls anymore. They don't even make sales calls anymore. Everything's on the WeChat basically, and they just go out and blast the social media, and then the WeChats will start rolling in, and then they just respond with WeChat, and they don't exactly, and they don't really go out to make the calls every day. A lot of them don't. and then they use a lot of trade shows to garner the interest, basically. But that's one specific market, and
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
a response is the response time which they are very concerned about, because WeChat is 24/7 and customers work 24/7 for them too.
yeah,
So
yeah.
there's no weekends, there's no after office hours. You can't put an after hours message on your WeChat. Just if you don't respond, they'll keep bugging you until you respond.
Wow,
So
this is very
that's a
interesting.
culture now in China. There's a speed of things, of what's going on in China. But
Yeah,
in other markets like Japan, which is still a very traditional way of working, and even Hong Kong is not as fast paced as China anymore. Hong Kong is also catching up. But those are some of the cultural differences within each of the market. I think again it may be very different in Europe and in the US as well.
yeah, you're right. I'm interested to hear about how does it go, especially with the technology and all of this social media. Do you think that that is shifting towards more digital sales
Oh,
direction, or in China at least?
definitely is more digital sales direction, basically. Of course, the face to face still happens, and they still need to meet with customers face to face. But a lot of it now is moved. The initial stage of discovery is moved onto online, mostly into digital. And even customers don't want to meet with you too, and that's what one of the issues is, especially after the pandemic, when they're very used to working from home and working on Zoom or Teams. They don't want to meet with you anyway, so they avoid meeting face to face in the initial stage. But eventually, when it comes to closer to the event, or then they will bring in the customers to the hotel, and then they'll start meeting face to face.
Very int-
So one of the skills that I started training, especially after the pandemic, was like truly what we call online meetings, how to conduct an online meeting effectively. And in the initial years that I noticed, a lot of the salespeople don't really have the skills to. They don't realize that what the customers see on the screen is exactly is the important part. So sometimes they don't look into the camera. They look down, and all those small little things about doing face to face web calls, basically, which some of the basic techniques are there. In the last few years, we've been focusing also a lot on, for example, site inspections, when customers come to the hotel for the site
yeah,
inspections. And that has also changed to a lot of virtual site inspections,
that's
where
correct.
customers are doing virtual site inspections now. So again, that's another technique that they need to learn, that they need to create a virtual site inspection process, how to do it interestingly or captivating that customer, because the customer is on the other side of the camera and
Yeah,
not face to face with you. So you can't really feel the customer's response. So you need to be able to pick it up and to present it in the way that it's like really creating a movie for the customer that makes it
yeah.
interesting and captivating.
That's very interesting, Lucas, especially with site visit, virtual site visits, of course, and online trainings. To be very honest, and I think it's perfect for my audience and also a lot of my people watching the podcast is in Europe. I cannot remember that I ever seen an online training for sales, like people teaching or that you get a training how to make a sales call
Yeah.
online or a sales meeting online. Also, good transitions to what Peak Hospitality is doing, and I think it's a good to talk about that. I read a little bit. Peak Hospitality Solution exists to help hospitality businesses to achieve peak performance. I want to unpack this a little bit more because
Mm.
everyone says performance, but how you define it, of course, it's a big game. So, what are your components or the major things you're working on? Is it guest experience? Is it revenue results, conversion sales, or what is it?
Well, I would say it's not. It's a holistic approach towards to achieve that peak performance. It is not just about numbers. No, it's not just about getting the revenue figures. I think it's an overall. You must have the quality and the consistency in delivering, in making that impact. And everybody's talking about customer experience these days. And the peak performance is not just about that one moment where you're in touch with engaging the customers. You're talking about a customer journey from the very beginning, even before they come to your hotel, before they start looking at your hotel, right up to the stay and post stay, and understanding the entire journey and all those touch points along that journey, the customer journey, that we have to engage them effectively and be able to give them the value they're looking for at every touch point. A touch point could be an online touch point. when they're engaging with you on online. They're at your website or they're talking on WhatsApp or whatever. There's a digital connection. And even at that engagement point, you must know how to engage them effectively to create that experience they're looking for. And when it comes to the hotel, when it's face to face, it's another engagement touch point. So along the entire customer journey, there are many touch points, and the hotels have to really understand what is it that we're delivering at each touch point,
Mm.
doing to give the customer that best experience at those touch points. And that is what peak performance is all about. So it's the entire journey. It's not just about that very one touch point, not just looking at the numbers per se. And the numbers will come. The numbers will come eventually. The lagging indicators will show. If you're
Yeah.
doing those little things correctly along the way, then the numbers will show.
That's interesting. You mentioned the touch points from even before the
Yeah.
guest the hotel. So that also include like the sales, like the digital
Mm-hmm.
part, the
Yes.
front office, housekeeping, basically everything, everyone in the entire hotel.
Yeah, even marketing. I mean, from the very beginning, when how to attract the customers to your website or to your digital profile, well, so that they can search for you, basically. So even at that stage already, you are engaging with the customers.
What the difference between a busy hotel or high performer hotel in your experience?
Busy in the sense of
Or
great
can
occupancy
yeah, exactly.
and high performing. I think the fundamental is still the quality of the experience that you're delivering to the customer, and it's not just the numbers. I think one of the questions that I was being asked recently was also about price and value. How
Yeah,
do we differentiate between price and value? I mean, price is the cost of the transaction. Everything has a price pay, but the value is what are you giving to the customer that the customer sees that value. And value actually is from the customer's point of view. What do the customers see? And one of the key things that if you remember, I also talked about for salespeople is always asking the "what's in it for me" question. DIIFM, what's in it for me? But for this me, is not from the me as a hotel salesperson, but the me is referring to the customer. What's in it for the customer? And it's how we deliver that value to that customer at the end of the day. And
interesting.
that's what's important. So get away from that price mindset that everything is based on price. I think one of the most common objections that we hear about during sales trading is that we're too expensive.
Yes,
So there's a question, right? Our hotel is too expensive. We're an
yes,
old 20-year hotel and we are priced too
of
expensively.
course.
That is a very common objection that they all face. But if they can turn it around and switch it, move the customer's mindsets to the value, the delivery of the value. And I think one of the core issues is perhaps salespeople don't really know the operations of the hotel well enough to understand what is the value that's being delivered to the customer. They know the product, yes, but they may not know the service delivery on a
The
day-to-day
operation
basis.
side of it, yeah,
The
correct.
operatives,
Yeah,
correct. So they may have that. I think they still sometimes operate in the silo where sales is sales, operations is operations.
I think
And
still, yeah.
I think
Uh,
that's
depends on which company or which like hotel brand, but you're right. There's still a lot of silos in the industry, correct?
I still remember my first job in a hotel when I first started in the 80s, where my boss, who was the EAM marketing at the time, told me that organize a orientation program for me because I'm new to the hotel sales. And most salespeople come in without a strong orientation. They just give them 2 or 3 days by HR to orientate them to the hotel, and that's it. Then they go jump into the sales department.
Yes.
And then they have to learn the ropes accordingly. And then my boss says, well, you don't know anything about hotel operations. How can I expect you to sell effectively? So he organized for me a 2 month orientation. 2 months.
Wow. Wow.
He said, just don't think about selling in this 2 months. I want you to just go and learn about how the hotel operates.
It helps a
What is
lot.
it that makes a hotel special, different from other hotels? And not just go and observe what's going on. I had to participate in the actual
Yeah,
operations.
yeah,
So
yeah,
I went to
correct.
every department and I was dressed in the uniform of that department. I was doing the work of the department staff, including housekeeping. We were going to clean the toilet, make the beds, everything that, because I know exactly what happens when they turn on when it clean the room, and how long does it take to clean the room. So from that lesson, as a salesperson, I tend not to overpromise early check-ins.
Yes,
To understand
yes.
what I mean? People tend to say, "Oh, we want early check-in. I want my group to check in because our flight's arriving at 10. We should check in at 11, and there's 20 rooms at one go." And so you have to be careful. And if you promise an early check-in, that if you're running 80% or 90% the night before, there's not enough time to turn the room around. So you're gonna have to run into problems. Again, you need to kind of like weigh that difference and be able to deliver the on the promise and not over promising the customer. So those are the kind of key lessons that I learned when I was starting out and from operations, and I value that because that really gives me the true foundation of how a hotel actually runs and what do we deliver to the customer. So when we go out and sell, we can promise the customer the standards that we can deliver and not over promise that based on what the customer just
You're
requests.
absolutely right. It gives you lots of insights about the background of the business, and it also makes your selling job much easier because you understand the struggles, you understand the weaknesses, you understand the strengths. Then you can also kind of connect what the customer needs are. So really nice to hear. When you've been to so many hotels, of course for trainings, but of course for also business, staying in so many different continents, what are the early warning signs when you go to a property that gives you like, okay, this hotel will probably draft or will have, you know, do you see it? Can you tell when you go to a property?
Yeah, I think from my years of experience, my company also does mystery shopping for hotels, right? And we
Yeah,
do
I
that.
was going to that as well. Yeah.
Right. So through mystery shopping, we also observe a lot of things, basically. Of course, as a mystery shopper, we have a list of questionnaire standards to compare against what the standards are expected to be. But even from just regular observations when I check into the hotel, from the moment I arrive at the hotel door, how the doorman or the at the driveway greets me is really a good indication of
Well,
how effective, how well the hotel is run at the end of the day. If even in a busy hotel, if the doorman doesn't acknowledge the guest or just a simple greeting of good day, good morning, good afternoon, whatever it is, I don't really need him to open my door from the car. That's something which is a plus. But at least the basic things like greetings and asking, do I have a bags or whatever, not to pick up my bags from the car, whatever, and opening the door for me and guiding me to the front desk, because every hotel may have different locations from the front desk and guiding me to the front. And that's the welcoming part, which is so important. The very first connection that is so important. Yeah. And it indicates that there is a lack of either in terms of what do you call service values that not being practiced effectively in the hotel, and also that right through when you go into the check-in, from the check-in point of view, and observing not just how they check me in, but also how they're interacting with other staff and other guests at that point of time. And if internally, I can see that you can tell there might be friction amongst the staff internally as well. If the bellboy and the front desk clerk don't communicate effectively, or even if the front desk clerk is kind of like um, talking to his or her colleague in a different way and tone, and not saying thank you for the help or whatever it is, then it really indicates. And if the phone is ringing nonstop at the front desk and they don't pick it up while they are checking me in, then it's another indication something is not right.
It's a lot to take. That's actually brought to my mind now with the rise of digital experience. There's a lot of hotels
Yes.
you will not have someone to greet you. You will do the full check-in, especially also after COVID, because there's a lot of hotels actually kind of
Yes.
had it. So what do you think as well about that?
Definitely, yeah. I've also done a lot of check-ins through the console, or even online through the mobile phone, and just walk to the room straight away. So you don't have that first engagement. But
Yeah.
there must be people in the lobby that greets the customer, whether they are ambassadors or guest services, or even the concierge. That they must be able to interact at that moment, acknowledge the guests when they walk into the hotel. Whether it's a digital check-in, it doesn't really matter. It is that acknowledgement of the guest coming into my hotel that tells a different story.
You prefer that experience in a hotel, the digital experience, or the old tradition kind of hotels? And I think there are two schools now. There's a lot of new brands, lifestyle brands, digital, that go into that direction where everything is almost digitally, but there are
Mm.
still the old tradition hotels that exist for years and years, they're still keeping the industry and the culture. What do you think?
I think the difference I would say is looking at whether you're a business hotel in the city center or you're a resort hotel.
Yeah.
If it's a business city center, business hotel in the city center, where the average age of the customers may be a little younger, 20s, 30s, 40s, then digital check-in is not an issue. I mean, the people are very used to it these days. But you have more seniors checking into the hotel, especially in the resort, for example, where there's seniors and families where they need a bit more help, then the
Yeah.
digital process may be a hindrance. But of course, there must be people guiding them at the stage. For example, if an elderly couple checks into a resort for the vacation, they may not be able to manage that digital console effectively and
Yeah,
efficiently.
you're right.
So
You're
there must
right.
be someone there. Or if it's a family with children, the kids will be running around. The parents are trying to check in the console, but the kids are creating a ruckus in the lobby. And that's another issue, right? So it depends on the situation. So both
Absolutely.
can work effectively as long as you don't use that as an excuse for not delivering on that service as well.
Yes, you're absolutely correct. And I can relate to that. I remember I was going to, like years ago, I was going to a holiday in Egypt where I'm from, and we booked like the trip. And I told my friends, I had friends coming with me. I was first time showing them. And I told them, don't worry, we're gonna book everything when we go. It's okay. And I was unlucky. There was a big conference in Sharm el Sheikh that
Mm,
time, and we went to like 15 hotels. Everything was fully booked.
mm,
But you're right. The This hotel, without mentioning the names, the first moment we stepped into the parking lot, the first greeting of the very parking, the door, wow, it was like huge welcoming. It already gave us so much feeling, even though the hotel was busy. We went inside and they took care of us, and you told, don't worry, we'll try. So you are absolutely right. The touch points plays a big role, and I
mm.
think a lot of maybe hotels maybe focus on that because of course thinking of loyalty programs, thinking of a lot of
Mm,
big brands already now you kind of take this for granted because also a lot of hotel depending on people just interested because they want to collect the points or you just want to
yes.
fill up their so kind of miss that connection as well or the real experience.
That's what hospitality is all about, right? How hospitable are you when the guest comes into your door?
Yeah,
And that's
correct,
the really, really basic, very fundamentals. How they
correct.
do the check-in is not any. I mean, is whether it's digital or face to face, it doesn't make a difference. But
Doesn't
it's
matter.
how you
Yeah,
make them feel when they first step into the hotel.
yeah,
That's critical. Yeah.
interesting. From training to measurable change, this is my next section. You have or you are known for training and performance solutions, but training can be dangerous if it becomes also entertainment. I want your honest view on that, of course. You've been there for years. My first question in that section, what behaviors do you insist in a training to not miss, not negotiable yet?
I mean, during the training or after the training?
As a take out from the training, like a value, can be during or after.
Yeah, I think again depends whether it's a sales training or a service training. There might be a difference, and I think again, this for sales training. To me, the most critical part is basically the fundamentals. I must recap whether it's a different level. Different levels of training, but the basics must still be there. Maybe the sales process must be observed, and they must know the sales process well enough to be able to make it as part and parcel of the daily work. Whether you are a new salesperson or experienced salesperson or even a sales leaders, if you don't know the process, then it's very difficult for you to ensure the consistency of the or the quality of the sales uh,
Yeah, yeah.
activities, basically. Yeah. It's not just about activities can be taught, can be trained. But I think at the end of the day, they must inculcate in every salesperson the basics of the sales process, which starts from prospecting and moving on to discovery and all the stuff. I mean, again, some hotels might argue that in this day and age, prospecting is very different than the old days already. But I still believe that process must be in place, and in any sales organization, you must have the sales process,
Yeah,
and that's
you're
a
right.
that's a non-negotiable. And how do you summarize it or simplify it? That's another question. But there must be a process. So the methodology can be taught, but the process must still be.
Must be there. Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right. It's like the foundation is the base, and if it's not there, everything else is not gonna, being built after. Yeah.
If you don't follow a process, and when you onboard a new salesperson, what are you training them?
Yeah, yeah.
What
And
is it
does it
that
make what is the perfect, of course, this can take another podcast, but what this full process looks like for you, a sales process?
Well, basically, it's just kind of like a 6-step process. If I can recall my own training content, but it always starts with prospecting. Basically, it's like the sales funnel, right? They put them through the prospect through the sales funnel. You need to be able to start off with the prospecting, casting your net and getting the prospects into your funnel. That's the very first step, basically, right? And then be able to filter or sieve them through the process or through the funnel to qualifying, questioning, us understanding the needs, basically, and then actually doing the inquiry, finding out what they're looking for, what they want, and making the proposals to them for what we can offer, what we can do, and then making the close, making the negotiation, handling the objections, and then managing the sales, the sales after this been closed. That's how I see the process in layman, in general terms, at the end of the day. So obviously, every step is important. Every step of the process is important. If you miss a step, then you might lead you to different problems at the end of the day. That the customers may don't feel they may buy. You may close a deal based on maybe you're good at talking or good at presenting, or the customer has a need. But if you don't clearly understand the full needs and expectation of the customers, then when you come to the delivery of the product, then it could lead to problem. And
Yeah,
that's usually what happens if the discovery is not done well. Then when it comes to the delivery after the sales, then there would be conflicts.
yeah,
And guess who faces that conflict most of the time? It would be operations. And
yeah,
that's where they get this conflict with sales and operations. And
yeah. And then
operations
it's
always saying
tested.
sales over promise, operations cannot deliver.
Yeah, yeah. It's always the fight.
Always that fight, right? Yes.
Really interesting. What do you think? Obviously, I was going to ask about that. With the rise of AI and
Yeah.
technology, how does it play a role in the sales process nowadays in your trainings?
I think AI definitely it helps a lot. I also include that in my training in this days and age. It's not just about making your proposals looks better with AI, with the help of AI, but even in every step of the process, applying AI skills into like understanding the market, doing a little prospecting, when you're doing a search, all that helps definitely. And the tools that you use, AI is definitely a key part of the tool these days. Even when you put together a presentation, and again, it shouldn't be a standard presentation for every customer. You should customize your presentation. But in those old days, without AI, customizing a presentation takes time. But with AI, I think it helps. If you have the fundamental framework which is already there, then if you know how to use AI to help you to create the presentation, whether it's PowerPoint or other formats, I think it would help tremendously. And
Yes,
it's
yes.
this is how you can. So there shouldn't be any excuse of not customizing your presentation.
That's really interesting. Do you think, based on your experience, because you've been there from the beginning until the rise of AI technology and all that, do you think AI also makes a salesperson maybe lazy or less creative? What do you think?
I think not. I think at the end of the day, AI is a tool that helps you to make it more efficient for you, I would say. And of
Yeah,
course, give you additional
correct.
ideas. The key is how you input your request into AI, your inquiry into AI. How do you must have the mindset of how you want the results to be. So you must ask the right questions. If you don't ask the questions correctly, then you may end up with a different product, a result at the end. Or you might have to keep asking, keep going back to the questions again.
Otherwise, it's also come like not really authentic. So it's just like
Exactly.
you're just
Yeah.
sending to everyone the same message and the same. Yeah.
Exactly. So you must ask the right questions to the AI tool that you're using, and it will give you the results that you want. And it
Very.
must be very specific, I would say, in the way that you ask. So it's creating that first the inquiry, which part of it, which is critical.
And
I would
what
say
do you
it's
think?
about basic.
Yeah, you're right. And how about the prospecting via ChatGPT or AI?
Posted, sorry, back which one? The
Prospecting, like using AI to
prospecting. Oh
prospect.
yeah,
Yeah,
of course
yeah,
it helps definitely. I mean, if you ask a specific question, like for example in Hong Kong, if I ask AI, can you give me a list of organizations that are in this particular industry within this market, and if you can, who are the key personnel from this organizations? I'm sure AI can generate the list of
of
organizations
course.
for you, and it's up to you to then follow up and
Yeah,
dig in
exactly,
deeper.
exactly.
Don't
I mean,
expect
you
if you
can
have
use
the whole
information.
thing, right?
It's boiled with technology. Like back in the days, you had to do this all by yourself.
I know, exactly. I mean, in those old days, we used directories like Yellow Pages, remember? I don't think you remember Yellow Pages, but we were using Yellow Pages, reading the newspapers, dailies, doing Compass
That's
directory.
right.
So those days, yeah.
I agree. I fully. I remember we used to do this, like going to other hotels and check what kind of events
Oh,
they have.
yeah,
So we
the
have to go
message
there
board,
and
right? The events board. And then
exactly.
these days, you don't need to do that.
Those days are gone.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Really interesting.
No, I still remember, interestingly enough, in those days, especially for last minute check-ins kind of stuff, last minute business where you need some fill the gaps. One of the things that my boss always asked me to is go to the airport.
Yeah.
At the airport, go to the airport. At the airport, there is a hotel inquiry desk, basically. Of course, they're not supposed to be biased towards any hotel. They should recommend every hotel. But if you make your presence felt to them, they know you're always around. They know that you're nice to them. You remember them, kind of stuff. Have the relationship with them.
Correct.
Well, whenever there's inquiry that comes in, the first hotel that comes to mind likely to be yours because they
Yeah.
remember you.
Yeah.
And so we do get a lot of new leads from that source quite often.
Definitely. I remember I did that. I went to the airport and I stayed next to the desk. I even saw the boards of the companies waiting for some guest, I would pick it up and go. So yeah, definitely back in the old days.
Yeah.
Very interesting. IFH Asia, building standards across cultures. You launched IFH Asia, of course, in 2024 in Singapore and Hong Kong through a joint venture, like you mentioned, with IFH Germany, focus on training and quality performance audits. What gap did you see in the region that made you say, okay, I want to start this? And where are you today and where are you going?
When it came to mystery shopping or quality audits, for example, within Asia, there are companies doing it, definitely, or even hotel sales training company. There are companies within Asia at the time already, but a lot of it is basically, I would say, let's look at it from two different angles. From sales training, a lot of it comes from the US or Europe, and a lot of local hotels don't have access to those suppliers. International chain hotels, of course, they get help from the corporate office and they get the resource from the corporate office. But local hotels, small regional hotels, don't have that kind of reach or resource. So that's the target market where I was going after. So I started the business, basically helping the local and regional chains within the hotels, within the industry, in the market. That was what I thought was important. And even for mystery shopping, there are standards which they use which are not specific to the culture of that particular country. So I have to make sure that we talk to the hotels and say what do you want to achieve in terms of the standards that you'd like your staff to perform, and we customize the standards accordingly. So we're very, in a way, my key customer market is basically those small regional chains or regional chains within Asia that may not have the full resource of an international chain, which has a big corporate office to support them, to provide them with those information. So that was why I started it. I chose to start it, basically. And the other thing was, and I remembered in those days, in the early days, revenue management was just starting out. Revenue management was a very new topic at the time, and distribution was even newer. A lot of salespeople don't really understand distribution, and
Correct.
they don't understand distribution. They don't understand revenue management. That's why I brought in the two major associations into the Asia Pacific market. So together with we brought in HEDNA, Hotel Electronic Distribution Network Association. We supported them to create some seminars in Asia, the HEDNA seminars in Asia. We also brought in HSMAI, Hospitality Sales and Marketing Association International. Again, we brought in their training programs like revenue management and distribution training into Asia Pacific. We launched those training programs in Asia Pacific under HSMAI umbrella. And that's how we really started going. And then we became very known at that time to be the revenue management trainers and distribution marketing trainers.
Very interesting. Very interesting. And do you have, you said you are now in China or in Asian market. Do you also go across the world, like in Europe, USA, or you have the Asian market, like your biggest focus?
My biggest focus now is still Asia Pacific. But of course, we have customers in Asia who are global. Asian brands have gone global as well. So some of my clients are now in the US and in Europe. So I do help with them with their local hotels as well in those markets in Europe and Asia.
Wow, it's a mystery shopper. I almost can't remember or didn't experience a lot of hotels actually doing it in Europe, like based on my past 7 to 9 years here. But it was, of course, a big thing. And when I was in the Middle East, we always learned about a lot of stuff from Mr. Shopping. So would
Yeah.
you also uh, alert the hotel that you're coming, or how does it work actually? I
No,
don't,
no, no. We don't tell them. Definitely not tell them. Yeah.
not
It
even within
depends.
the
It
time
depends.
frame.
If you're engaged by the corporate office, then definitely the hotels are they know that there's such a program.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
When we appear, then when we check out, then we tell them, then they get the surprise, obviously, upon checkout.
And then you would have this list, you would check up
Correct.
almost everything from every touch point from the beginning to the end.
Yes, correct. From the beginning, even from reservations all the way to checkouts, basically. Yeah.
Wow.
That's only relating to hotel operations shops. Basically, we also do a lot of mystery calls for reservations calls and sales and my sales calls, basically, where we make
Shop,
inquiry to the hotel
yeah.
sales department, yeah, and see how they handle that inquiry. What's the follow up like? What is the proposal like? And what's the response time?
That's really good. That's
Yeah.
because sometimes people get busy and then you miss up a
Oh, yeah.
call. Yeah, definitely. But you have to be consistent, especially when it
Yeah.
comes to the responding to a prospect, responding to a client.
Correct.
And yeah, sometimes it doesn't happen like this all the time.
Definitely. I think there are many, many occasions where, for example, we do inquiry through email, through websites, through the hotel websites, official website, through telephone calls, basically. So we do different channels of inquiry. And there are a lot of times when a lot of these channels are not so effective at the hotel, and the hotels may not be aware of it. For example, if you make a telephone call to the hotel's sales department, a lot of times you don't get the right person to speak to. You get the sales coordinator who answers
Yeah,
the call, and they don't know how to sell. They don't know how to make an approach. They don't know ask the right question. So that
that's
connection, the first contact is not a good experience. And then
then
when they just
yeah.
churn out a standard proposal with pages and pages of menus and all that kind of stuff without really answering to my needs, then that also shows that they're not hungry for the business, so to speak. So they're not handling that. That is one touch point which is critical for my hotels. But if they don't handle it effectively, then they might lose the business.
Yeah, exactly. That's what really matters.
Yeah.
Wow, it's almost the end. Like it went so quickly, the
Okay.
call.
Oh my God! It's already 1 hour.
Yeah, it's really, really interesting. Talking with you is amazing. But before we end up, I have definitely something that I want to ask you about, especially with AI and the future of AI. Can AI actually improve hospitality without killing the human part, the actually true essence of hospitality?
Oh yeah, definitely. I think so. As long as they view UI as a supporting tool
Yeah,
itself and not an answer to it's not a magic wand, to speak. It is a supporting tool, and you still need the human contact, the human touch. And I think one thing that is perhaps I would say AI, as we all know, is just an engine that trolls the internet for all the information, and then they keep present to you what they think is the best information. Original and creative ideas they can't generate, and that can only come from a human brain.
yeah, yeah.
And that
Yeah.
originality and the creativity is what should be highly valued at this stage.
Yeah, correct. I'm personally one of the people who really got inspired from you. So I want to take this chance to ask you for an advice, maybe an advice to somebody starting in their sales career right now or revenue, but I think maybe sales more relevant, whatever you feel like, and especially nowadays with the technology. So what would be your advice?
Well, I come back again to the basics. You really need to have that basics, the fundamentals.
Basics.
Focus on the basics, the funding. Well, if you look at it, the foundation is so critical. It's like in any building, right? What is the first thing you put in for a building when you build a new tower? Is the foundation. If the foundation is not done well, then the building is not stable.
Yeah. Yeah.
If a typhoon comes, or it might collapse or whatever. So that foundation is so critical. And even for salespeople, that is what is important. Build your foundation, and then you can raise and, as you mentioned, level up, on the foundation and grow and build on it at the end of the day. Without that foundation, you're just building sandcastles in the air.
Yeah. Well, definitely today I did level up. Thank you for that. And I want to ask you actually also, I always ask this question in the show, what does level up means to Locust Peng?
Well, for me, it's like if you look at my website or my company's motto is raise the bar, basically raising the bar. And again, raising the bar has a starting point. Where's your bar at this moment, at this stage? And leveling up is basically similar to the similar concept, basically moving the bar up, upwards, and not keeping it, don't let it plateau. You may reach a certain point, then you should level up again, get continuously raising the bar. But you have to find pain points along the way and be able to overcome those pain points and just move up, level up accordingly. That's what level up to me is basically.
That's insightful. I feel like we could talk for another 2-3 hours, but I really want to thank you for your time today. It has been a pleasure hosting you. And also, I'm really honored to be in touch with you all these years. I'm going to share your contacts, of course, and information in the description so people can reach out to you. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you. Thanks, Hakim. Have a good
Awesome.
week.
You
Enjoy
too.
yourself.
Have a good day.
All the
See you.
best.
Thank you. See you.
Bye.
Yeah. Every conversation can and will elevate you. It's where real talk meets real